Hey guys, welcome to the Creative Arena. So with ScrollTrigger animations using GSAP all over the web, I decided to make this star card that looks like it's pinned on ScrollTrigger with a little bit of floating and scaling effect to spice it up. So at the end of this step-by-step tutorial, you'll be able to create something that looks like this from scratch and it's responsive on all devices. So now when you scroll down, you now see this, have this effect, as you can see. And then when you scroll up, it comes down like this, and you come over here, you scroll down, you have this effect like that. And then you can see it well placed. And also a little bit of floating going on here, as you can see. And then it is also responsive on all devices, and we can check that out by checking it out on tablets. Now when we scroll, you can see the effect working pretty well on tablet. And then we go to mobile, and then we check it out on mobile. You can see it as well, working just fine on mobile. With the floating effect also working there. Okay, so now without further delay, let's dive in and get started. Okay. Now the meta editing screen, what I'm going to do here is I'll just click on this plus icon here, select the flex container, and then select the structure. Then I'm going to duplicate this 3 times. Okay, now for this first container here, we're going to use it as a space to scroll up. So I'll change the unit from pixel here to VH and give it a value of 100. Then for this last container here, we're going to use it as a space to scroll down. So I'm going to change the minimal height unit from pixel to VH and give it a value of 100. Now for the middle container, which is a container we're going to use, I'm just going to rename this one here to main. And then I'm going to come over here, set the content width to full width. And then I'm going to come down, justify content to the center, and then align item to the center. Then I'll go to the style option, change the background color to black. Then I'll go to the advanced settings, unlink this. Now to the top, I'll give it the value of 100, and to the bottom, I'll give it a value of 100 pixel. Okay, so now still on this main, I'll go to our elements area and then add a container within it. Now for this container here, I'm going to call this container inner container. Now I'm going to set the content width to full width, and then I'm going to come over here and make sure that the direction is set to column vertical and justify content to the center and align item to the center. Now for the gaps, I'm going to unlink this. For the row, I'm going to give it a value of 500 pixel. Okay. So now that I've done that, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to come over here to our element area and then add another container within the inner. Now for this container we added within the inner, I'm going to call it our card container. Okay, so for the card container, I'll make sure that the content width is set to full width, and then for the width, we're going to give it a value of 70%. Okay, now we're going to come over here, the direction, make sure it's set to column vertical. We're going to justify content to the center and then align items to the center as well. Then for the gaps, we're going to make sure that there is no gap, so we're going to set it to 0. And then we're going to come over to where we'll have our margin, that is the advanced settings. We're going to set the margin to 0 and 0 as well. Then we'll come down here to where we have the CSS class. I'm going to give it a CSS class value of card. Okay, so now that we are done here, the next thing I'm going to do here is within this card container, I'm going to add another card container. So I'm just come over here and add this container here. Now in this container, I'm going to call it the content. And this is the content container that is going to contain all our contents, just as the name implies. So for this container here, we're going to make sure we set it to full width here and then justify content to the center and then align item to the center as well. And then now that we've done that, the next thing we're going to do here is we're just going to go to the style. And then for the style, we're going to set the background type to gradient. Now for the first color of the gradient, we're going to give it the value of black, set it to black. And then for the secondary color, there is a second color here, we're going to give it this value here that is #1CCAA3. So I'm just going to copy this color code here. Now that I've done that, the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm just going to come over here and then try to make the color a little bit darker by dragging it here. Okay, so we now have something that looks like that. Okay, so I'm going to come over here to where we have the angle and then change it from 180 degree to 360 degree. Okay, so now that I've done that, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to the border. I'm going to set the border type to solid and then give it a border width of 2 pixels and a border color of this. Okay, then I'm going to come over to the border radius and give it a value of 20 pixels all around. Okay, so now that we've done that, the next thing I'll do is I'll go to the advanced settings. Now for the advanced settings, I'm going to set the padding 20 pixels all around. Give it a padding of 20 pixels all around. Okay, now I'm going to come back to our elements and then we're going to drag the heading widget here. As you can see, to drag it and drop it here is quite difficult. So we're just going to go back here and then select this content container here. And then all we just need to do is to come over to our element and then click on the heading widget and it's going to add within it. Okay, so for this heading widget, I'm going to change the text here to phase 1. And then I'll go to the style option and tweak it a little bit. So I'm going to come over here. For the typography, I'm going to set the font family to Roboto. And then for the font size, I'm going to set the font size unit to REM and give it a value of 1.4 REM. Come over to the width, set the width to 600 and transform to uppercase. Then I'm going to come over here to where we have the advanced settings, come down to the background, and then I'm going to give this a background color, same as the border color we gave. So we now have that for our background. Then I'm going to come over here to where we have the border, and then I'm going to give it a border radius of 5 pixels all around. I'll go back to the layout, and then for the padding, I'm going to give it a padding of 5 pixels all around. Then I'll go back to the style, come over to where we have the text color, and then I'm going to set the color to black. So we now have something that looks like this. So you can see this is it. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do here is I'll come back to our elements area and then drag the spacer and drop it here. Okay, so now for this spacer, I'm going to set the space to be 100 pixels. Okay, great. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to come over here to our elements area and drag the heading and drop it right below the spacer. Okay, so I'm just going to select this content container. Anytime you find it difficult to drag an element within a particular container, all you just need to do is to select the container and you want that element to be within it, and then go there and select the element and it will be added within that container. Okay, so for this heading text here, I'm going to set the HTML tag to H3, and then I'm going to come over here to where we have this text here, and I'm going to change the text to from June 7th. Okay, so now that I've done that, the next thing I'm going to do, I'll go to the style option, and we will have the typography, change the font family to Roboto, and then come over to the font size, change the font size unit from pixel to REM, and then give it the value of 3 REM, and then come over to the width, set the width to 800, and then transform to uppercase. Okay, then we're going to come over to the color and then give it the color same as the background of this header text here. So I'm just going to leave it like that. Okay, so this looks great. So the next thing we're going to do here is we're just going to come over here to our header widget area, and then we're going to add a container within this content container. Okay, and then this is the container. So for this container here, we're going to make sure we set the direction here to row horizontal, and then justify content to the center and align items to the center as well. Then I'm going to come over here, copy this text here, and then I'm going to paste it here. Now I'm going to come over here, change the text here to beta, and then I'm just going to come over to the style option, and to the typography, I'm going to increase the font here to 6 REM. Okay, then I'm going to come over here and duplicate this text here. Now for this second text here, I'm going to call this launch. Okay, so now for this text, I'll go to the style option, come over to where we'll have the background, text background color. I'm going to set it to transparent. Then I'll come over here to the text stroke, give it a value of 1 pixel, and the stroke color, I'm going to change it to white. So we now have something that looks like this. Now, finally, I'm just going to select this content container here and then come over here, and I'm just going to drag this heading text, click on this text editor so it adds below this section here. So now for this text editor, I'm going to go to the style option, align it to the center. For the text color, I'm going to set it to white. Okay, then I'm going to go to the advanced settings, and then for the width, I'm going to set the width to custom and give it a value of 70%. So we now have something that looks like this. Okay, so now that we're done designing our card, and this is the card all other cards will look like. So I'm just going to come over here and try to make this particular card responsive so that once we duplicate it multiple times, it's going to be easy for us to work with it. So I'm going to go to the tablet. Now for the tablet mode, I'm just going to come over here to this heading text here, come over to the font size, and then I'm going to change the font size here to 1.2 rem, and then come over to this text here, go to the font size, the typography, I'm going to change the typography here to 2 rem, and then for this spacer here, I'm going to reduce the spacer, set it to 50 pixel. Okay, then I'll come over to this beta text here. For the beta text, I'm going to go over to where we have the typography, come over to the font size, then I'm going to reduce the font size to 3.5 rem, and then do the same for the launch text, reduce the font size here to 3.5 rem. And then for this text editor, I'm going to go to the advanced settings. For the custom width, I'll change it to percentage and give it a width of 90. So we now have this. Okay, so now that I've done that, the next thing I'm going to do here is check it out on mobile. Now for mobile, we're just going to reduce everything. So reduce the size here to 1 rem. Come over to this one here, and then I'm going to reduce it to 1.1 rem. And then for this one here, the beta text, I'm going to come over here and reduce it to 2.5 rem. And for the launch text, I'm going to reduce it to 2.5 as well. 2.5. And then for this text editor here, we just go to the advanced settings and set it to 100% width. So we finally made our card responsive. So we're just going to go back here, and we're going to come over here to where we have this heading text here. I'm going to go to the advanced settings, come down to where we have the position. I'm going to set the position to absolute. Okay, then I'll come over here for the horizontal orientation offset. I'm going to remove this, set it to empty. And then for the vertical orientation offset, I'm going to give it a value of 20 pixel. Okay, finally, the last step we're going to do is we're going to come over here to this content container here. And then we'll come over to the advanced settings, come down to where we have the CSS class, and then we're going to give it a CSS class called content. Okay, now we are set, everything is set. So the final step for us to do is to duplicate this particular card so that we can have multiple cards, okay, to add our effect to. So it depends on how many you want. You can duplicate it as much as you want, but for this, I'm just going to duplicate it 4 times. Then I'm going to pause the video. As you can see, these are the various cards here. And you know how we got this space? The space we added to the inner container, the 500 pixel we added to the inner container. This one here, that is how we got this space here. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm just going to pause this video while I edit the various cards to make them look different and beautiful. Okay, so I've successfully edited the various cards. As you can see, they now look different and look beautiful. Okay, so now what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to come over here, just toggle this so we can see the various cards. We have the 4 cards we have here. So I'll come over to the first card, this card here, phase 1. Now you can add this to any other section of the cards, but let's just work with the first card. On this first card here, we're going to add our CSS code to it. So now for this first card here, we're just going to come over to the advanced settings, come down here to where we have the custom CSS. Mind you, this feature is only available on the Elementor Pro. If you do not have the Elementor Pro, there is a link in the description of this video where you can get it. Okay, so now I'm just going to head over to my VS Code editor. We have written down the CSS code we'll be using. So I'll just go down here and then copy the code. This is the code here. I'm going to copy it out and then come over here and paste the code here. Now you can see that the code has been added, and now we now have space above and then space below here. So to fix that, what we're going to do, we're going to come over to this first card here, and then we're going to click on the content and go to the layout. Under the layout, you're just going to come over here, change this uniform pixel to custom, and then we're going to set it to 100%. Then I'm going to copy this and do it the same for the remaining card. Now, the reason we set it to 100% is because if you see the code we added to our first card here, it gave us a minimal height here value of 8 on 80 VH for the card. So now the content now is not as long as 80 VH. So what it does now is that setting the content minimal height to 100%, it now takes up 100% of that 80 VH card that was set on the card container. I hope you understand my explanation. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, come over to the second card and then come down here to the layout, set this to custom, and then give it the value of 100. Let's scroll in there. You can see, give it a value of 100%, and you see it's no longer. Okay, come over to the third card, do the same, come over to the content, set this to custom, and then give it a value of 100%. And then for the fourth card, we're going to do the same. Come over here to the content and then set this to custom. And then we're going to have this here. Now we now have this effect here. And you can see now that we now have this stacking effect for all our cards. Okay. So now I'm going to come over here and just toggle this back, toggle it all back. So now the next thing I'm going to do is we're going to add our JavaScript here that will beautify and make our animation come to life. So what we're going to do on this last container here or anywhere else on this container, we'll try to avoid putting it within this main container here where you have these cards here. Okay, so we're just going to put it here. Okay, and then we're going to come over here, search for the HTML widget, and then we're going to drag it and drop it here. Okay, now for the HTML widget, I'm just going to head over to my VS Code editor. Then I'm going to come over to where we have the JavaScript. This is the JavaScript written here. I'm just going to copy it out, and then I'm going to come back here and paste it here. Okay, so now that we've done that, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on Publish. And then I'm going to click on Preview Changes. So we'll allow for our site to load. So now we'll come over here and we'll scroll down. We're going to see this effect, which you can see. So you can see that floating effect on the cards. You can see when you scroll up, it goes up, and then you see it now pins to the center. You see, this is a wonderful feature that you can use to spice up your site or whatever project you're working on. And mind you, it is responsive on all devices. It is responsive on all devices, and you also have this floating effect and that scaling effect added to the code as well. So now we're just going to come over here, go back to our code, and I'm going to explain some few lines of code here for you. Now, if you want to change how the level to which your cards are being rotated, you can come over here, reduce this from -7 to -5, -10, whatever value that works for you. And then you come down here. This is where you can increase the speed of the floating. This floating animation you can see here. You can come over here and increase it here. You can set it to 20. Let's set it to 20. And then when you click on Publish, come over here. When you scroll down, you're going to see. You see it's floating more, as you can see. So you can just play around with the values here to get whatever value that works well for you. So I'm just going to leave it at 5. And then I'm going to publish it. So let's check our design on the Light Simulator to see what it looks like on mobile and tablet devices. As you can see, this is what we'll have here. Okay, that pin stacking card with the pin effect like that, and the floating effect as well. So now let's check it out on tablet. So now when we scroll on our tablet, we can see the effects working pretty well on tablets. That floating effect as well. We scroll down. See, now we can also check it out on mobile. So we'll scroll, see it on mobile. Okay, so now you can see that it doesn't look pretty nice on mobile. So what we can do here is we're just going to come back here to our editor and then come over to mobile. And then what we're going to do here, we're going to come over to this inner card here. And then we're going to go to the advanced settings and give it a padding of 20 pixels all around. And then we're going to publish it. And let's refresh this. And then when we scroll down, let's see. It's now working pretty well. And so we've come to the end of this video. If you've learned something new from this video, remember to give this video a thumbs up. And if you're new to our channel, remember to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you get notified first when I drop a new video. And also feel free to drop your comments whenever you're confused or have any question or suggestion, and I'll do it to attend to as much as I can. Until then, see you in our next video. Bye-bye.